Welcome and thank you everyone for joining us for another Twitter Space. Today is September 1st, 2022, and this is episode 36 of the ledgerscale Internet of Value Open Forum. Now, ledgerscale Foundation was founded with two goals in mind. One, we want to provide educational services to not only our community, but to the entire digital asset community, and to help scale up the number of brains that understand how distributed ledger technology works. And two, we intend to one day run hardware to provide infrastructural support to the distributed ledger technology networks that we believe are ESG friendly and running a form of decentralized consensus. Now, we host these spaces Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, starting at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. And on Wednesday, we host a focused topic space from 5 to 6 Eastern Standard Time. And if I could just ask if everybody could follow us on Twitter at ledgerscale and turn those notifications on so you know when we're going live, and as well as hit the bubble box at the bottom right there, and give a like and a retweet to the space, because it helps with the algorithm and hopefully other people find this information valuable in the future.
Yeah, basically we're just here to engage the community. So please, if you have a question, raise your hand or just go ahead and speak up. And if you're curious about something, I guarantee someone else is. That's for sure. It's always the case. And it's an open forum today. So yeah, just if you do speak up, please be cordial. And if you do want to help support the effort here, there are addresses at the top of the ledgerscale Twitter profile that you can donate to. We're working on the rest of it. But yeah, welcome to the space.
And I sent some invites out. If you guys can't come up, it's fine. And if anybody in the space has any questions or any topics they'd like to speak about, please feel free to come up. But welcome up, Steak.
Hey,
I can always
man.
trust you to talk with us.
Sorry, I didn't quite get that.
I said I can always trust that you'll come up to talk with us every time you join us.
Yeah, I'm a chatty kind of guy, I guess. I actually found some interesting information today. I sent it to a few of you in the DM. I also tweeted about it. It's on my profile in regards to the metaverse and Congress, U.S. Congress, and that's quite it's quite thought-provoking information in there, in my opinion, and basically in regards to privacy.
You want to post it up top? I don't think I was one of the recipients. I don't know if I've seen it today.
No, that's yeah. Sorry for that. I'll definitely post it on top. It's definitely. Let's put it there, and let's put this one there. They're both on top right now. Especially the later. The first is the entire PDF file from the 26th of August. The concepts and issues for Congressional Research Service by the Congressional Research Service. And then they basically write up an article. The article itself I haven't finished yet, but is very interesting. And then they also post sources everywhere, and especially sources 152, not and 166, but up to 166, are all in regards to privacy issues with the metaverse. And it's just the amount of data tracking. That's my other tweet. That's the last one I pinned, especially in regards to kids or the deceased or people in the bottom of society. That's just mind-blowing stuff, in my opinion, because it ties into a lot of research other people have been doing, especially, for example, progress that's being made on brain-computer interfaces, or progress that's being made on haptic gloves or facial expressions or AI, stuff like that, machine learning. We've all been talking a bit about these topics, of course, but now it's the first time that I see all these innovations coming together in one single field. And basically the way that they want to profit of it is with data tracking models. And there's quite a lot of ethical issues around it. So that's why I want to pin it at the top, because I think if it's ethical, then it's in everyone's best interest to at least be aware of it.
Well, I think most people would probably have to opt in for that type of system, right? And I think they would, in most cases, I think they would. To be honest with you, Steve, I think if people were offered a UBI with, right, with whatever they have to offer is just the data, and they're paid for their data, right, and they receive some sort of some payment from it, I could totally see that as the future we're going towards.
As a child, though,
This is,
are you able to opt in when you're still a child?
That would be your parents.
yeah, probably legally. Then you got to get the
But
lawyers
then,
involved.
and then I would say this: I bet you most people in America would still opt in for their children.
Well, but see, then you this is essentially Jaron Lanier's data dignity concept, right? Like
Who's he?
you create data, that data is valuable as an input, right? Just like steel is valuable as an input to a car manufacturer.
Sure.
And so since the data is valuable as an input, you get paid for it. And the AI runs the process, turns the data into information that's even more valuable because it's organized and, you know, analyzed and whatever.
Mhm.
And that's good.
I'm going to give you a prime example of something that's being actually developed right now in the world. So you have like a VR or an AR type of glasses that is registering your facial expression, your eye movement, etc. That's not so far fetched to think because that technology is already out there. Actually, Mark Zuckerberg also quite elaborated on that subject when he was on the podcast with what's this name again on Spotify. Oh man. Anyways, he elaborated on tracking rapid eye movements and stuff like that, on how people perceive information and the emotion that they have. So, for example, if you are watching a video, whatever type of video, be it educational or amusement or whatever, and they can interlink between what's happening on the screen and what you are, how your reaction is registered towards it. And they
Yeah.
can use that again for very personalized ads to make it very difficult for you to not be persuaded by a political message or not be persuaded by a Nike commercial. It is just going to be tailor made for everyone.
Well, I've read some of these studies. It's called mass customization.
Thank you. Good word.
It's I'm assuming you know the term, but yeah, no, it's a real thing. You can this is why the camera, you know, anyway, but yeah, eye movement and there's all sorts of studies. I've looked at a few about how eye movement around like and I've looked at it mostly from a website design point of view. So like how do we put this website together in a way that we can like most quickly, because you got seconds, man. You got seconds. You got to communicate in just very few seconds. I mean, these chats are long form,
I know, I
but
agree, but you gotta reverse those seconds when you're the one that's being targeted. So then you got seconds to be observant about an ad that suddenly comes in between your video, and in seconds you got to register with what you're seeing, and basically you got to program yourself to say, well, I'm being manipulated right now. I'm not going to buy it just because they're saying it, but just the subliminal messaging that can be part of it. We all know it works, like superior
well, and
brands.
there's even an age difference, right? Younger people, I mean, will just not look at the ad. They just skip right over. Like, but older people seem to be a little more.
No, I disagree with that. For
No,
not
that's a
for
fact.
no
That's a
no
fact.
yeah, sorry. I agree with what you're saying, but I disagree with the premise in itself that if you just look at something like McDonald's, they target 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, so that they become the
Well,
customers of the future. I mean,
Well,
that's their
kids,
entire business model.
yeah, kids are. This is where you borderline into some ethical issues, in my opinion. Um,
No shit.
because and you don't basically once you hit, I think it's like 55. I think it's 55. Once you hit 55, the advertising marketing budget, that's going to be directed at you it's just declining at an exponential rate. They're spending their money on the 5-year-olds, the teenagers, the 20-year-olds, the 30-year-olds, the 40-year-olds. They're not they don't give like your patterns by the time you're at that age. I mean, and I live in Boomerville, so you're not going to like sell these people stuff.
Mm.
They're going to
I
here's what
get
they
that.
do.
And I
Like they
know
do.
I'm preaching towards the most tough crowd that's out there, because I guess especially Americans are very advanced when it comes to advertisement in their society. But as a European, I'd say that advertisement below 18 years old, just get fucking rid of it in society as a whole. Just get rid of it.
I would tend to agree with you there. I think it's too easy to like I mean hell, it's almost too easy to manipulate a person that's a full blown functioning smart very intelligent adult, right? But a kid, I think that to apply some of these methods to children is it's probably not desirable. Let's drop the probably.
Probably, yeah. Let's probably, yeah, because the business model wants to make a money and wants to make a buck. So where's the kid going to get money anyway? So
Well,
you're just going to create dependence. You're going to create, you see it now, like in children with loot boxes. I'm sure you've been aware of the problem in gaming, whether it's mobile gaming with gacha games or whether it's just on console gaming with kids buying skins. In Belgium and in the Netherlands, this shit is now banned. It's just banned. It's you're unable. Diablo 4 didn't even came out here, which is not because it's rated 18 plus or anything. We don't give a fuck about the brutality in it, but the gambling mechanics that are part of it have just been banned completely, and rightfully so, may I add. But it does make me worry that it's going to be a business model, because it's going to be very difficult to program yourself against it, not just for kids, but also for adults. I mean, it's
well, this is why I think it's important that the people who can design good, balanced, fair, like good business models that are self-sustaining, that create mutual benefit across all user types. Because if you're creating a market, you're inherently connecting various different user types. I mean, at a minimum, you're connecting buyers and sellers. I mean, that's the basic, most minimum
yeah.
of a market. But you can design markets that connect multiple players or multiple participants or stakeholders or whatever the hell you want to call them. The to you got if you just do that in a way where all the different parties benefit. I mean, I guess in some sense, as much as I really don't like advertising, in some sense, if you have a good service or product that can help people accomplish whatever it is they're doing, there's nothing wrong with going and saying, "Hey, man, I can help you out," right? Like I got this thing, and it'll help you accomplish what you're trying to do. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. So, advertising has its place. You got to let people know what you're doing. But I don't like it for as the business model for the internet. I don't think it.
Here's the thing. I am very much a gamer for a very long time. I have a PlayStation 5 at home, one of the lucky few, perhaps, or even not few anymore. But there's a thing in there called Tempest, and many people even that have a PlayStation 5 aren't even aware of the fact that's in there. But Tempest is an audio system, and the audio system is brilliant in that they created um, a means of audio that is not yet really being used to its fullest because not many developers are playing around with it, but we will in the future, and you will find this technology in other aspects as well. And I'll make the bridge to what we're discussing now. They approximately 1,000 employees of Sony. I'm sorry. They put in a studio, and they played the same sound bits, and they had to interact with the sound bits on how well it was adjusted to their hearing because everyone has a different ear. So everyone registers high and low tones differently. And based on those 1,000 employees of their own, they created a model of what the average hearing is. So all the high and low tunes are directed at the most pitch perfect hearing for the average user. Now they use gamification. It's an app or a game that is yet to come out on the PlayStation store, and you can go in there and then you can play it through a game and then adjust settings left and right, up and down from 1 to 10 in how high or low a tone should be. And you can actually educate the system that it will portray audio to you on your pitch perfect hearing, also for your headset. So that's one sense that's going to go down, which is going to be the most pleasant sounding audio that you can hear. Even real life will not give you this kind of audio sensation. Now that's just your ears. Then you'll go to your eyes. Now I've been talking about this in other spaces as well because I used to sell AR glasses. Right now we have a screen that we're looking at. So the distance between our eye and the screen, that's an issue because it creates latency, which creates motion disorder by a split second, and you get dizzy after 2 hours or 3 hours of wearing that headset. But we're going towards a future where you get a laser projecting directly at your pupil. So you're going to get photorealistic images, just like you're looking at your whatever you're looking at right now in your life, just as clear as you see real life. That's going to be your digital screen in your glasses. Now that's your eyesight figured out as well. Then you get haptic feedback. Now there's haptic feedback on a PlayStation 5. Let me tell you, it's fucking amazing. This technology has really progressed from rumbling to actually being able to experience what it is when wind blows or when things are icy or hot or different sorts of triggers when you're shooting or when it vibrates or when you're performing an action with your hands in AR VR. This is, of course, now modern times. We're talking about 10, maybe 13 years ahead when this technology will even improve even further. And that's just the haptics. So then you got hearing, seeing, feeling, which is already insane. We're not even talking about a bodysuit yet, or silicon layers which can direct with your neurosystem, or like brain interlinked chips. That shit is even more advanced, and maybe it will come decades later. But just to give a glimpse of what's happening in the very near future, this tech is already here. It's already here. It's not cheap, but it's already here, and it's just mind blowing that we're tracking and enticing people with it, not just children, but
You,
also vulnerable people.
Steak.
And
I think I've told you about Jaron Lanier before, right?
no, I haven't. Not
You
to me.
need, if you're into this type of topic, you need to go and study his work.
And can you spell his name or give me a DM about it? How do I?
It's
Jerome.
Jaron, and I think his last name. God, I'm terrible at spelling. I think it's Lainer. Jaron Lanier. Look up like
Yeah, I got him.
he's got dreadlocks and
Yeah, I got him.
yeah, he's one of the original folks that was a computer scientist. Before that computer scientist was a thing.
Yeah, I'll look into it. But just
Yeah.
to give this is a document from the 26th of August where the government actually um, acknowledges the fact that this is going on, right? So now they get a move.
I just wanted to chime in here. I love what you're saying, Steak, and really bringing to light how real this technology is and is already being applied. That it's being used in war, like, and so your claim, like your argument here about using it in advertisement is very interesting because it's currently used for war. Like the sound technology, the audio projection technology is definitely used by our Navy, like 100%. That's why it's not as commercialized yet. And same thing with like the visual projections, and a lot of these things could be used for bad in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, they're definitely going to need to regulate how the technology comes out. For instance, I'm particularly interested in that audio projection technology, and that's what they use in LRAD for crowd dispersion. But yeah, like having that type of precise audio essentially fed into your mind is what it feels like. That's just a whole different level of kind of potential psychological abuse. And that's where we'll see metaverse kind of being this loss leader for AI and data and information about how people react to these other technological applications. I think it's
Yeah,
really interesting.
great point. Great point. I think it's interesting too, but maybe I'll just look at your own Lanier that Karma mentioned. One thing that I do want to add is that we already see a very big addiction with social media the last decade, and it eroded social etiquette in younger generations. I think we all witness it. I don't think it's a weird thing what I'm saying right now, but that will get worse, and I think that's not something we should make even worse than it already is.
You're gonna enjoy Jaron Lanier. He addresses that issue as well. If you really look at his work,
Yeah, I will. Not right now, though. Well,
work.
not right now, though. I'll just shut up and listen to others. But yeah, thank you for the.
The guy's a good thinker. He sees, he understands, and he articulates. You know, he's a good thinker, and he's all the stuff that you are expressing an interest in. He's been in this for decades, and you know, it takes some time sometimes to develop a thought. So yeah.
No, go ahead. Thank you for raising your hand, man.
All good, all good. So yeah, I mean, so basically, like, I like what we do. Like, I like how there's more people that are starting to fully grasp what this technology is going to eventually do. Okay, so here's a few things. So from my perspective and from what I know and everything else, it's like, and I don't want to sound in condescending, but it's when I hear people bring up aspects of this technology, it's more or less common sense. Like we kind of already know where this is like heading to. But a lot of the times, there's nothing wrong with it. But I hear people they romanticize like the end game. Like they think that, and and it's just the thought process of people are going to capitalize off the bodies of people that have perished through this process is I think foolish. Granted, this technology isn't made for us. They're going to use this technology to basically create us as digital slaves. They're using the technology to essentially make us human commodities, put us on a chain, and track us. This has been an agenda for a long time.
Yeah,
It goes down to It goes down to like
I
when
don't.
you guys are talking about like the opticals, they're going to be utilizing those things not only
But here's the thing.
for advertising
I,
and data
I'm
points.
sorry, man. I'm not. I don't want to go along with this type of narrative, and the reason why is we're already part of a society, right? Like I have a driver's license, I have a tax ID number, like I have an
Yeah, I get that.
address, I
I
have a
get that.
credit card, I have a bank account. Like, if there's somebody that is, in a authority, like you're just another person in the society, right? Like you're
Right,
just part of the
I
culture.
I would say
right,
a better way to word it is, and so I also agree in the aspect of you can almost interpret what's going to happen in the future of society based off of historical context. And so maybe not like a grand plan, right? But maybe somebody saying things that were intelligent about what they thought the future would look like, and like a plan they wanted to have towards the future. And like I said, like Karma described, right? Things aren't really getting any different. The only difference is the technology and the apparel, right? Human beings, the idea, the concepts are the exact same. We just keep repeating. And so, um, unless we're going to have some sort of, and listen, I'm all for it, right? Some sort of like spiritual awakening for the entire species, which I would love. Um, it's just going to keep repeating down the same kind of pathway, just different technology, different apparel. And,
I hear you.
yeah,
I just never really got to articulate my point though. I mean, that's what I'm saying. This is all common sense. We all know these things. But I guess the main point is that we like the levels of us romanticizing this is I believe is pretty high. And I'm not fighting crypto. I'm just being realistic. They're going to utilize, so whether or not, and this is another conflict of interest with this space too, is the graphite oxide and the vaccines and how it's going to turn humans into interfaces. Now we saw articles from Stake posting neural interfaces, so this is technology that they're already utilizing as it is right now. They've already been working on super soldiers for warfare. All this has been this has all been in the works. And when it comes down to the deep understanding of all this, there's so many aspects. It's hard to really like point out one because you kind of assume people know what you're talking about. So we're not going to be able to control any of this, and we can
I'm
see.
really, I'm really honestly, I'm not sure what you're talking about. I'm sorry, but I'm really not sure. What's the
What I'm talking about is that this technology necessarily isn't for us. Now, I feel like we're going to be all on a system. We're all going to be a number, like how you're saying. Like we're all commodities. We're all numbers. We don't really necessarily matter in the greater scheme of things. So why would
assuming,
blockchain change
assuming
that?
you're an
Karma, can I please, because I started this and I'll end it too. Sorry,
well,
Sauce. Give
Well,
me,
I
give,
can't
give
an
me,
even.
American, hold on,
give me.
assuming
Maybe
you're
like
an
what I'm
American,
saying is
you have a
above
citizen.
everybody's head or
You have
something. This isn't too complex, but I, I don't know. Whatever. If you guys want to articulate your points, go ahead.
No, it's in the bottom line, and then I'll close it. Have faith in humanity. Things and progress comes in waves. It's not linear, but progress throughout millennia has always been there. It's creating and making our lives better. Very intelligent people are making very ethical decisions. The thing is, though,
But
that our
stake
decision has. The thing is, though, that
this
one
technology
second,
is made to track
one
us.
second,
That's
please,
what it's
Sauce.
made for.
One,
Same with
yeah,
the
but
graphite oxide and the
Sauce, that
shots.
that
That's
that
the
may be
reality
so.
of it.
That may be so. Your cell phone is being tracked as well. And still, we're not slaves. The thing is, have faith in humanity. Eventually,
It's
down the
very.
line,
It's. I know. It's not. It's not a. Obviously, we're not slaves. Obviously, they're still using your cell phone data to send you ads to track your locations. Government agencies use it for investigational purposes. They could tap into your website, your data any moment given time. So people aren't cognitive of it the same way they're not going to be
they
cognitive
don't
of
have the
websites.
firepower to track people that they aren't thinking of a threat for society. That's another ethical issue as well. And I do agree, because that's why I bring it up, that it's a very important conversation to have. It's something to keep track of, because this happened the 26th of August, so the government is keeping track of it as well. We know what happened in Web 2. We now see what will happen in Web 3. We can act upon it before it happens, so that's progress. But it will come in waves. There will be smart people, venture capitalists, that will step into a market that is unregulated and try to make a buck. That's capitalism. But if it affects society too much, then yeah, we should do something about it. But I do disagree with the thought about being future slaves. I think this technology can bring a lot more good than it does bad, but it can also bring bad. But have faith in humanity that we're trying to figure this shit out. And that's why I address it here in these spaces, so that we are aware of it. And maybe we can make a buck. Maybe some of us can do something good for humanity and take a good ethical position. Maybe some of us will eventually end up in government. Maybe some of us will be a CEO someday of a company in a blockchain 10, 20, 30 years down the line. And eventually we can do something about it. And that's the reason why I want to address these topics. I have a lot of faith in humanity, but I do think that it's going to be a continuous struggle going upward. So that's my
I hear
viewpoint.
you. I hear you. I just don't subscribe to the
Well,
whole
I'd like
biometric cyber like transhumanism ideology, and that's where this is going to go, whether we accept that or not.
Well, based off of historical context and the future of our species, I kind of agree. But I think, like Steak says, more for the better than for the worse, in my opinion. But let's kind of change the waters a little bit. Kashti, you've had your hand up for a reasonable time, man. Thank you very much.
Death. Give me one statement. I like my grandmother's last, words were, "Leave the world a better place, never give up." People are generally good. Does that mean there's not bad people out there? Yes, there is. But how you pick these tools up and use them, it does matter, right? Like you can do bad with these tools. Look, we've seen several things implode in the recent past. Okay. Yeah, bad things can, you can pick this crypto stuff up and do bad. Fine. But yeah, anyway, that's like, but most people I think are generally gonna do good, because if you want to be sustainable, there's more value in being sustainable than being like a fraudster that's like a flash in the pan, right? Like, who cares?
There's a reason why we still quote Hitler or someone being as worse as Nero, right? There's a reason for that.
Thank you. So just real quick, so I'm gonna try to approach this from a different angle and see if this makes sense to you, right? But we have to kind of separate when you say they are building this technology, they are doing this, right? Like at the core of it all, they are not operating everywhere, right? So like Steak was trying to indicate, as many people who are behind government projects to try to surveil you or corral you, there are developers out there who are libertarians trying to give you an innovation and a new way to do things outside of what they have planned for you. So I think that the problem with your premise is that it's encompassing the libertarian developers in with the developers who are working on behalf of some dark secret state type program or whatever it may be, right? So at the end of the day, like, our society has never gone totally one way or the other, right? There's still a lot of people living in our societies because they make the choice to not engage with technology, that it never affects them. Because they make their choice to never go with the masses, that it never affects them. So I think that only drawback that I have with the way that you're characterizing is it is too encompassing, right? At the end of the day, we know that there are people out there that are building technology to try to corral us, right? But it's up to the people to then have an alternative system so that they can use, so that they don't have to make that choice. And this is really what it all comes down to. Same thing with economics, right? A lot of people get put in bad situations because they haven't made the economic choice to be able to be independent of the bad choices that they get compelled into. So
there's a parallel here in the sort of real world, like central bank, commercial bank world. because the commercial banks have, if you look at the CBDC requirements and some of the concerns that they have, or at least, well, not concerns, but some of the things that they want to accomplish, is that they want to accomplish not forcing citizens to go through a commercial bank that is charging them fees or exposing them to risk, right? This is what paper cash does. Like, when you have paper cash, you're not exposed to fractional reserve risk. You're not exposed to mismanagement by the commercial bank that your bank account is at. You're not, hang on a second. Damn it, I got people showing up.
Well, I just want to finish with what we were talking about, and I agree with what you're saying, Costa. And I may be encompassing it too broadly, but we both, everybody knows, like, everybody's woke, everybody's awake to what's going on right now. We all know that people are controlling us. We all know that, and just as much as there's people out there that are doing that, there's developers that want to break free from that, and I totally get that. But what I'm saying is that I think it's the key takeaway I'm trying to say is that it's not all doom and gloom, right? But the thing is that we're not gonna have like any, like, I guess people could take it however they want, but we're not gonna have any say over any of this stuff, because this technology, yeah, we can build on it, we can utilize it, but it's gonna get to a point.
That's where I 100% disagree with you, right? Because I'm a little bit older than you, right? And society has tried to push us in a lot of ways over the 50 years that I've been on this planet. And then many times I have made the choice, because I didn't want to go with the way that they were pushing us, that I have taken the sacrifices and lumps that I have had to take in order to be on the other side. Hold on, what I'm saying, in order to be on the other side.
It's just one question.
Go ahead.
So
Go ahead.
Did you take the vaccine?
No, I did not.
Okay, so technically speaking, you're not part of the system. So in order for you to get your digital ID,
but this is what I'm trying to say. Before you go to the digital ID, this is what I'm trying to get across. There are going to be many people like me who are not part of the system as you described it, right?
I'm one of them.
We have the choice to make those choices.
I'm with you, but that's not. It's not our choice. We either play with their system or we don't.
But you're contradicting yourself. Either you have a choice or you don't.
Here's the thing, and this is just a fact you're going to have to recognize. Networks are inherently monopolistic. So governments run the biggest networks, right? And we're social species. So we have to work together. That's how we operate. That's how we live our lives. We have friends, we have family.
Hopefully my point is hitting home, though, is that this isn't, if you're not part of their system, if you're not taking the jab, you're not part of the network, and you're not part of the network, right? So
yeah.
How are you going to be able to interface?
And so now you're just out like, go join another network.
Can I chime in here, because I agree with both stances, and I think I have a real world example as to, like, an applicable scenario. So in San Diego, where I live, to address Kashta too, I actually started my crypto development journey, not my investor side, but my development journey, as the treasurer of the Libertarian Party of San Diego. Just putting that out there. I normally don't put my politics out there, but so there are what you were saying very much hit the nail on the head for me. But what Sauce Wallet is saying also applies. So in San Diego, the whole place has like high definition cameras on every street lamp. And I'm not talking about street lights, like the, yellow, green, red, or whatever. I'm talking about every lamp that lights the streets. There's nothing in San Diego that isn't videotaped. And I've seen these videos, they're very high definition and they capture audio. So there was when they first installed these things, I want to say it was probably about like 6 to 8 years ago, something like that. And they were active. Only the police and the city had access to it. Once the population kind of found out a little more about the extent of the surveillance, the next mayor that got elected, he shut them down. He got a bunch of pressure to shut down the surveillance program. But what happened is they had a contract with a Florida company that actually operates the cameras, and so the cameras aren't actually shut down. There's just nobody supposedly using them for government purposes. Does that mean that they don't have data and feeds and all of these things? And does that mean that in the future nobody could go back and literally use all that, or start applying this system? And so let me finish the point though. My point is that we all now are living with this kind of psychological overlap or overarching psychology that yes, you are being watched. Yes, there is a literal camera watching your every move, tracking everything you're doing. That's not your phone. That's not, and that's something that, regardless of whether you feel like our government is or isn't using it, like politically or legally, it still exists, and now that's affecting your cognition in some way or another. And so regardless of how you choose to not participate in certain systems, you're definitely forced to participate in a number of systems if you're existing under those conditions. But I could also leave this city and not be here.
You're hinting at a feedback loop of the behavior of the cameras having an impact, right, on the behavior of the people in front of the citizens, and then having an impact back if people get upset about it. Yeah, there's a feedback loop there. That's what you're sensing.
Right, but look at how crazy this is, though,
So
right?
if you're on a list for shoplifting and you go into that store, the facial recognition will actually pick you up on camera. And one last thing too is that this is what digital IDs is for. This is the exact reason we talk about it, and this is the real implication of it, is that you need to have your papers right.
Actually, no. The incentive for digital identity is the refugee crisis coming from Africa. That's what the UN report has been stating. That's the starting point for digital identity.
They're going to utilize it to get it not just social credit scores, but to have. We talk about this literally every day. It's all your information in an easier way for them to access it, and that's going to entail vaccination status. It's going to entail things that let them know whether or not you're suitable to be a part of
But
whatever
Saul,
they're doing.
just like Bex just so eloquently articulated, right? And this is what I'm trying to get you to wrap your head around. There's always this public trust that it exists, right? And if technology pushes too far to be evasive to the people that are using it or exposed to it, then the people push back, right? And I know she said they could still turn on the cameras at any given time, maybe even a clandestine manner at the end of the day. But again, there are people who could then find out that it has been done in that manner and push back even further. So again, always understand that at least here in this country, the people ultimately have the say so in what gets pushed to us or not. And it just comes off as if you're delegating that power to people in a way that they don't actually have the power. And so I would just be hold on. I would just be cautious.
If I'm not doing anything bad, then I have nothing to hide.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is you're giving the people who have authority more authority than they actually have. Their authority is derived from the people.
It's just being self-aware.
Let me address the because this is important, especially since we're in a crypto situation here.
Just 1 second before you do that, Karma, because I wanted to say to Bex's point though, we've also been kind of like led to believe that some things that are intrusive are not really intrusive at all anyway, right? Because you never had an expectation of privacy when you were in public to begin with, right? So we need to like go
That's
back
not
and
true.
define.
That's a very nuanced point.
I gotta push back a little bit on that. And it's the funniest example. The I don't remember where I saw this or who said it. I wish I could claim credit, but I can't.
The bathroom.
But the thing is, when you go to the bathroom, you shut the door. Okay, it doesn't mean you're doing anything bad in there. Everybody knows what you're doing, right? So, but you still shut the door.
Steak said.
What I'm saying
I
though is
shut the
there
door
is
as
a
well. I
legal
shut the door as well.
environment that we live in, and you do not have the legal right to the expectation of privacy in public. It just is what it is, man. Like at the end of the day.
In public, no. If you're walking down the street, I remember when Google Street View, believe it or not, like the very first iteration, they came by, and one of the guys I worked with, this was I was at Fidelity, he was like, "Hey, have you heard about this Google Street View thing?" And I was like, "No, what are you talking about, man?" And so he showed me, and I was like, "Oh, we'll type in my house." And it was back when I had my Jeep, and I had it was a Jeep Grand Cherokee, so I had the back tailgate up, and I was grabbing the tailgate about to probably close it, and they got me on freaking camera, and like I'm just sitting there at my house. I couldn't. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, that's me, right? Like, that's my car, that's my house, and they've got this stuff just freely. Yeah.
Did you call?
Well, they got in trouble for that because they were doing stuff where they were hitting different Wi-Fi networks. I believe is what the crux of the issue was.
So I'm going to take this silent moment to just chime in because I got to go in a minute. But interesting conversation. I would say that one thing I learned in my youth, painfully, was number one, to pay attention to where I'm getting my information and to trust but verify and vet every source that I'm going to quote. And number two was that absolutes are only true when you're talking about never using absolutes. Because, you trap yourself into a situation where it can be ridiculously frustrating that you've kind of painted yourself into a corner, saying always this, never that regarding absolutes. So, I think the most true take that I've heard that resonates with me anyway is that you have, just because you have the ability to exploit, doesn't mean it's a guarantee that it'll be exploited. And I shared an article or a tweet above that is somewhat relevant, even though it's talking about CBDCs. We've talked in this space a lot about how programmable money makes a lot of sense, but can also be really dangerous for a government to have that much control. And so, if you read through the article I linked or the thread that I linked in that tweet, the woman who presents that is a researcher, and she's really advocating for like a CBDC Bill of Rights, which is exactly what Kashta and Steak were talking about. With like, have faith in humanity and have faith that there are smart people that agree with you, but aren't like as it sounds like you're defeated about it a little bit, Sauce, to be
No,
honest.
that's
Like,
not even the point. That's not even that's what I'm saying is like if people can't like articulate and bounce different ideas off each other without it being doom and gloom, then that's on them. I'm saying people need to actually be realistic with what the technology is we're describing. Now, I understand people have good intentions and there is good people in the world. Everybody knows that it's common sense. But what we keep on romanticizing is that some of us really think that we're going to make millions of dollars off billions of people dying through vaccine deaths and then ushering in a new financial structure through means of many disasters for them to even implement it. But the whole time we think it's going to be some great wonderland where we're going to have sovereignty, this, that, and the third. But if you really look into the technology and if you really understand what they're trying to do, none of this really seems like it doesn't really seem that sexy. It just seems like it's literally all for total control. And that may come across like some people may hear that and like it might scare them because I understand we have money tied into this, but that's the real like it's the cybernetics, the transhumanism, biometrics, all these things are going to correlate. And yeah, I mean, I do agree we do need to have a way where the CBDCs can't control people. I totally agree with that.
but what
But
I'm saying is, no, I hear what you're saying, and it's valid.
yeah,
But what I'm saying in response is that there's a positive side to everything that you said. Not obviously the most extreme versions, but the last few things that you said when you're talking about, biometrics and um, some of the VR concepts that Steak was talking about earlier that can be abused. Right there's a positive side to it also. Like there are people that can have experiences that they never could have had before without that. Like not a normal, I have all my five senses, I have the ability to walk, right? Like those the bulk of us are in a situation where we're like, okay, well, why? But then you look at somebody who's paralyzed and has the ability to freely move through a metaverse, with these audiovisual sensory aid
Donna,
components. Like
I'll
it's a big deal for them.
I'll give you an example. Okay, when the video chat and all this stuff first came out a couple of years ago, I was very pessimistic, and I was like, "Well, this is stupid. I'd rather just talk to somebody. Like I can tell you what the hell I need to tell you. You can tell me what I need to hear, and then we can discuss it. And I don't I don't need to no job that I've ever had, well, except for the sales job, was involved and even then it wasn't video of our face, it was screen share. But anyway, so like I just thought the video thing, it was just stupid. Okay, so I was wrong. And one morning, I walked over to the beach for sunrise, and there was a lady sitting in a car, and she was obviously deaf because I tried to talk to her when she walked over to the beach, and she couldn't hear me. But when I walked by her when she was sitting in the car, she had her phone up next to her face, right? And she was doing sign language, and it just hit me, and it was like, oh, well, that's awesome.
Yeah, no, that's a great
Right?
example. That's a great example. And I,
It's awesome.
honestly, sorry, go ahead. I thought you were done.
That's basically the story. I mean, but it like hit, and I was like, okay, and like instantly changed my mind, and I was like, yeah, no, this okay, maybe I think the video chat thing is stupid for me, but I can totally see it being completely useful for somebody who has to communicate through sign language. That is good. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, obviously, like business becoming global with the high speed internet, the ability to meet somebody face to face, that's, 12-hour different time zone. My God. Sorry, I just
warehouse
had an
workers
annoying
using
alert.
AR to have automatically counting for like pallets and manufacturing. Like, there's a lot of implications with it. Like, don't like don't get the wrong impression. Like, I totally am fully aware of what this stuff can do. I'm just saying there's a flip side. Like how you guys tell me, like, oh, there's good, but at the same time, I mean, the bad implications are very heavy weighing because they're very intrusive.
Yeah,
So
I
I
have
just
to
want
agree
to be
with Sauce
realistic.
on some of his comments on the potential for the bad to happen. I know I'm bringing it back to the discussion to where Dennis mentioned that, trust the people. I do trust the people. The problem is I don't trust the people with power, because at the end of the day, power, absolute power, corrupts absolutely. And throughout history, it's been shown that this is the case, right? I think just having it exploitable uh, is the big problem, right? Not because that, okay, just because it's exploitable doesn't mean it's getting exploited. But my line is, if it's exploitable, then that's the problem. I think I'm looking at it from a cybersecurity perspective, um, because we've seen how governments work these angles, right? We've seen it when they said, "Oh, by the way, we're gonna temporarily not allow you to withdraw your gold, right, to countries, right?" That was a temporary thing. We saw it when in 2008 when they said, "Oh, temporarily we're gonna have to bail out these banks," right? And it's always been a long game for governments. So the fact that if it's exploitable, it might not be exploitable at the beginning stages of this stuff, but over time it changes. That's the thing that people need to
Yeah.
understand
Well,
from a history perspective.
Ghost,
Over time, no matter what, it
Let me
changes.
just say one quick statement to just as a response to governments don't die. Well, they can, but they don't, and humans die, and so there's a limited time span. So humans naturally have to go through a different logic flow than a government does. So
Great
the
points, Karma, because that
governments, right? It might not be our generation that says, "Oh, it's quite okay that I'm 100% being surveilled and my voice recognition is being surveilled." Right? It might not be our generation to say that's okay, but at some point it tires out people, right? It tires up. We're more subservient. That's just the norm of things, right? So
well,
unless we
Just real quick, I think the norm of things is is much simpler than that. Honestly, I think like Costa was saying earlier, like who is they, right? It's so easy to assign it to some obscure figure, but it's really, I mean, through my experience, there's a problem, sometimes an extreme problem. Solution comes to fix that problem. Solution gets exploited, right? And then rails are put in place, like guardrails are put in place to guard against the exploit. And it's, with everything you can literally point to anything. It's like, and listen to like Bex, and I love you, Bex, but like I guarantee that video camera system was put into place because there were some bad things that happened and nobody had visibility on it, right? And then people needed visibility and they cried out, "We need to know what's going on here. We need to be able to protect people." Then it got exploited, got too much, right? And then everyone's like, "Well, wait, I don't want to like have to worry about like scratching my butt when I'm walking and have that like broadcast to the world," right? So became too much, got pared down. Guardrails sound like they're inefficient, honestly. So the guardrail step was missed a little
This is a
bit.
very Joe Rogan type statement, honestly. And I understand what you're saying about like the maybe something happened, we need it, like, but that's like the only defense you can make, because if you truly understand this technology, you understand who they is.
no. So this is exactly, and I had an example for this exact scenario that I wanted to bring up, and then I want Shellfish to speak. She had her hand up for a while, and then the elephant. But so so the camera's intrusive, right? But so tell me this: what if somebody's riding their bike, right? And this is a real world example. They fall over, hit their head on the curb, and people just walk by while they die on the ground, right? Now, what if that camera with artificial intelligence behind it notifies 911, and that person then lives because those cameras were there? So, like, in every scenario of like, if they had to be intrusive every day of my life watching me in the public, I'd take that if that saved that person's life. That's at least my opinion on it. So like with everything that could be bad, you know, has the possibility.
That's a great
My
point.
question, Dev.
That's a
Okay,
great point,
that's a
Dev.
good
But the
point.
problem is, hang on, Sauce. The problem is,
All right.
right? Yeah, that's a great point. At least from a positive perspective, right? That's a great point. But the problem is, you know, Dennis said if there's a problem, there's a solution to the problem, right? Who defines the problem? That's definitely a problem. There, your example. But a couple of years ago, the problem for governments was that people were not taking the vax, right? So their
There you
definition is
go.
we got a problem. How do we solve this problem, right? So by implementing tools like these, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist per se. I just see a big sort of challenge coming into what are the pros and cons in a civilization there that monitors its citizens 100% of the time. I'm 60-40 that the negatives still outweigh the positives, and maybe because I'm older and so forth, but I'm 60-40 that the negatives outweigh the positives, and it could be the potential downturn of a lot of things that happen.
Well,
And
to be clear,
might sound like some hippie shit, and I'm sorry, but this might sound like some hippie shit. But you gotta kind of, whoever, I forget, when it was Death, I think, you gotta believe in the humanity. People are not that doesn't mean people don't use tools for bad things. You can beat a man in the head with a hammer, and you can build him a house with a hammer. But these are just tools. And
I think a good point is that when the January 6th stuff happened, people got arrested that were just on the property. They didn't do anything illegal. So if the government can define parameters of who's bad and who they want to go after, and you're just walking down the street minding your own business, you want to go to the market to get a loaf of bread, but yet they think your ideologies are bad, that's the technology. That's what they're going to do. That's what they're going to utilize it for.
I want to chime in here about the example that we're all discussing, because I'm the one who brought it up. I could see a potential evolution of this in which it wasn't solely the government controlling it. I would release it full public to the people. Anybody can see anything you're doing anywhere on the fucking internet. That's what I would do with it, and that's what I would propose, because clearly, and yes, that could be used for anything, but that would be the evening of the score. That's what I would see that going towards. And honestly, you could also like have legal teams that operate on this network, right? Like the ACLU and the Anti-Defamation League and all those different organizations that are like watchdogs, and you would probably find new organizations that would erupt out of that. But I think it's worth experimenting, because the technology is obviously already there and like in use, and B, I agree, like we can apply all types of AI. I think policing could be done better in regards to, you've got these cameras. Why are you now racially profiling everybody on the fucking block when you know what guy did what? Like, what do you mean? Like, why are you now harassing all these people? And like, I think there's a lot of different ways that it can be applied in more. I mean, it's definitely going there. We're gonna see it happen. So it's not an if, but a when, and how is it going to be applied? And if we only allow the government to apply it, and like don't stand up and say how we want it applied. And so, I mean, San Diego is like the perfect testing ground for all of this kind of shit, because we've got tons of like military, industrial stuff. We've got the brain computer interfacing, like we've got all of that research institution stuff all right down here. So I mean, it's gonna be this kind of like testing ground for all of this, including, I mean, the people that invented the sound technology came from here, like the LRAD and all that. So if they're gonna test it, they're gonna test it here, and I would hope that the people being aware as they are, that we would figure out methods to institutionalize it, or not institutionalize it, but release it publicly in safe ways. In the same way, like, you would, like what Kashta was saying, like, you go in public, you're in a public space, you weren't expecting any privacy anyway. So, but to what extent it's going to be used, because these street cameras are basically, they have purview over your private property too. So it's, I think privacy is just dead. Privacy is dead. It's gone.
I'd really like to get to
Yeah,
shellfish.
okay. Yeah.
You guys have had your hand up for so long. You go ahead.
No worries, no worries. So I have a few things. So first, I think the military was obviously the perfect place to trial a lot of this stuff, because I think basically you become the U.S. property, right? Like you sign your independence away when you become part of the military. So a lot of it has and is being tested on them first, right? Second, I think with COVID, I can't remember the psychological term, but there's like that law of thirds that was going on, where a third of the population just goes along with the flow, a third kind of stays in the middle, and a third opposes. So with that being said, I'm one of the ones that was, I've always taken vaccine, but with this, I was an anti-vaxxer. And now, as time has progressed and I've watched the vaccine and what it's done and what it hasn't done, I've more moved into.
I'd really like it if we could just kind of stay away from like anything particular about anything political or medical or anything like that. I'm sorry, Shellfish.
Sorry. No, I was just trying to make a point. I didn't mean to be like vax or anti-vaccine, but anyway, I was just saying, like, as a general population would follow the rule of thirds. So that mentality, with blockchain even, and my clients, like, being so opposed to using cryptocurrencies or this or that, not knowing, I think as time progresses, that rule of thirds is going to slowly go from anti crypto and pro fiat to, oh, well, it's a lot easier to not go to the bank, to not waste the gas, to I don't know, have the money obviously at our fingertips whenever we want it, or that, and also the fact that we have like the whole XLS20 voting and all that stuff going on. I think we're going to progress into more of a governance voting council as far as like the data and the digital security and stuff like that. We're just going to have to kind of like let it grow and work through the bugs as we go. I mean, there's going to be some people that get hurt along the way. I don't want to say like killed, but like just financially, like we have them now. Like I've gotten people that have hacked into my bank account and stolen money from me, and I don't have a lot of money, and they still targeted me. So, I mean, whether it's the old system or new system, it's there. And hopefully the blockchain will grow and we will work out those bugs. Okay, thank you.
That was a great point. Sorry, Costa. I just want to make one quick point because my meeting got pushed to tomorrow. I think it's like a recurring theme that I talk about in these spaces where it's like, what are you going to do with it? Right? Like, so you love XRP, you love the XRP ledger. What are you going to do with that love? You're just going to buy it and hope someone else does it? It's the same thing here. Like, if you're frustrated about something, these things only change by like educating yourself on what is a solution to that, or if there is no solution, coming up with a solution and then getting vocal about it. And so, that's how these changes happen. And going back to the CBDC Bill of Rights, right? Like, I had not heard that talked about as like a public initiative before I read that thread. And it makes sense. And yeah, there are dangers, but there's also a lot of benefits. So if the benefit outweighs the potential risk, then you have to figure out the guardrails. And so that's all. I just want to focus. I prefer to focus on solutions and action, and I try to tune out the rest. So that's it.
Yeah. So just real quick, like Sauce, I really truly understand what you're saying at the end of the day. So it's just not about a hype with me or about money or moon time, right? It's an acknowledgement, right, for me that there'll be these choices once the genie gets let out of the bottle, that you can have these distributed, decentralized. And I'm not speaking absolutes, right? Because Dennis makes a good point about absolutes. At some point, everything could be corruptible if we want to take it to its extreme. But on the surface, right, once the genie got let out the bottle that we can distribute and decentralize these systems, right, then the old paradigm no longer exists where we're compelled to interact with these systems that have single points of failure that created this environment, right, that has us thinking the way that you're thinking right now, that ultimately they are going to do this and they are going to do that. Because up until we had these decentralized distributed systems, there were always the point of failures that they could then attack and compel us. Right. But at the end of the day, just using Bitcoin as an example, right, that ship is long sailed. So now there's economic activity that exists outside of their control that they cannot then push you to any one thing and say you are compelled to use this, because you now also have the choice. So what we're expecting, at least what I'm expecting in the blockchain space, is for that to then materialize into other areas, right? So what are the main ways that they like to influence the public, right, through technology, social media, TV, all the things that we interact with, right? And so we haven't seen any of those things get decentralized and distributed, right? They still have all of the traditional points of failure so that they then can compel us with bad technology, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the thesis and the hope is that the systems that we choose to interact with at least the most and the ones that are outside government control, because if it's inside of the government ecosystem, we have limited control other than just vote people in that have our will. But if there are systems that exist outside the government pervade their authority, right, then our hope is that they're going to get put on distributed systems that don't have single points of failure, so that we're no longer compelled to be thrust into these AIs and malicious use of the technology, right? Like Facebook uses it in a bad way because of the single point of failure that exists within Facebook. Like if that was on a distributed, decentralized system, right, then we would ultimately have control about how Facebook was actually run. So that's what I was trying to get you to understand, Sauce, is that yes, technology certainly can be used by governments and bad actors, right? But we're hoping that more of the things that we actually interact with get put on systems that are decentralized and distributed so that they don't have those single points of failure that then compel us to have to do whatever they want us to do.
Very well said. And I just want to say, thank you for everybody who's already came to the space, who's already come up and spoke with us today. This has been a very interesting topic, and I'm really enjoying the conversation. I'm glad everybody is keeping it very peaceful, and it's more of a discussion than it is anybody trying to push their point of view. So I thank everybody for keeping it, very, very moral to yourselves. And if anybody else wants to come up or join the conversation, has any questions, please feel free to hit the request, come up. If I could ask if everybody could retweet the space at the bottom right. And I think the elephant, you had your hand up earlier, man. If you would like to speak, because I don't think you had the chance to so far.
Yeah, well, thanks, guys. A lot of things been said already that I wanted to say. Only thing I can say as a final is take a listen to George Carlin, American Dream, and then maybe that'll put a bow on the whole topic. If you guys familiar with Carlin.
Oh yeah, and I was just gonna say, Bex, just so if you want to look it up, it didn't actually start in San Diego, so y'all not really the test ground. But they've used, if you look up Palantir and how they use that technology in New Orleans, they use it in Chicago. They've actually been using this kind of predictive crime technology in quite a few cities. But the interesting thing is, and it kind of goes back to the point I was making earlier, as soon as it was abused, the people in those cities put that shit out pretty damn quick, right? So as long as we kind of live in an environment where we exercise our power in a democracy the way that we should, we do still have some protections away from bad actors that exist in the governmental aspect, right? But then that's just incumbent upon us to exercise our authority. But yeah, it didn't start in San Diego.
Oh yeah, no, I just meant if we're gonna keep evolving into this context. I know it didn't start in San Diego. I know London is hugely wired, and different cities across the world are experimenting in this as well. I'm just curious as to what this, what any new iterations of this looks like, or if it's all just gonna look the same. You
Yeah,
know?
and the interesting thing is it came about just like Dennis said, right? So think about the cities that it started in. New Orleans, right? It had super bad crime. So the people actually insisted on this stuff, right? It wasn't just forced on them by the government, right? It was kind of like same thing we saw with 9/11, right? A lot of us gave up a lot of privacy and rights, et cetera, after 9/11 because the circumstances had just changed so dynamically that we were saying, hey, look, if you need these tools to then keep us safe, go ahead and do what you need to do. It wasn't until years afterwards that people started saying, well, did we really do the right thing? And so, yeah, it kind of got born out of a problem, and then it kind of quickly went away because the people figured out that, hey, maybe this wasn't the best way to do it. So power's still in the hands of the people at the end of the day.
Yeah, right. Makes the official decisions for things like that in the town, right? It's typically elected officials, right? And so somebody has to elect them. It's just the people in the town. So yeah, very good point. We've got about like 15 more minutes. Bex, I think you were about to say something there. If you'd like to speak, or if anybody else has any more input or anything they'd like to say about the discussion.
When fake alien invasion.
I like to say other intelligent species. I think alien is too derogatory of a term.
And what if it's not fake? What if it's just a revelation of what they've been hiding or allegedly hiding? Because I don't know one way or the other. Well, what if it's not fake? Like, what if we just get a disclosure that they've been here all this time?
Hey, it could be extended family returning.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Thanks for that, Bex.
Well, goodness, what are you guys talking about?
I know that I was just about to say this. It's been a rabbit hole since I've been listening, and I could have jumped in at any time and followed Alice, to Wonderland. But I just enjoyed the ride, and I understood where Sauce was coming from. I understand. I mean, because if you read a lot of stuff, like a lot of this stuff has been predicted that they have been playing chess while the American people have been playing checkers. I mean, if you can read the Rockefeller Foundation papers, the Bill and Melinda Gates papers, and all these different foundations, they do segue or point to an agenda. Whether you want to say it's X Files or not. And we did have freedom and liberty. We gave up freedom and liberty for safety and security. So it's like that third thing that I don't know who was speaking about giving up a third, giving up a third, giving up a third. It's not so much that you know the people don't wouldn't push back, but it's the psychology that or the repetitive psychology, the psychology just that's trained on the people that makes them give up everything. Because some people believe, some people don't believe. Then I see that being a big part of giving up, freedom and a way of life.
It's the lack of economic sovereignty at the end of the day, right? If you look at a lot of these states, man, some of the biggest employers are the government, right? If you extrapolate all the way that to the military, right? And then it becomes the large corporations. So when you really think about, well, we don't want to talk about the vaccine, but if you think about just how they compel people in general, right? A lot of times it's through your job, right? At the end of the day. So if you can kind of like, worry better your finances and choices better about how you work, where you work, and those decisions you make, right? It kind of gives you freedom to not have to be compelled to a lot of things that people don't really want to be compelled into, because it just comes from a lack of economic sovereignty at the end of the day.
But you talking about but that would imply that everybody's playing chess. Everybody's not playing chess. You got a lot of checker players out there, and that's the great divide right there.
No, I'm saying they definitely playing checkers, right? Because the checkers game has got them to the hidden, agenda at the end of the day that, they don't even realize why or how they're being compelled, right? It's like because they're not playing chess, right? So yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying. I'm just saying at the end of the day, when people can kind of come to the realization that a lot of things that you're forced into, right, or you're forced into them because you don't have the economic freedom to make another choice, then you start making the right choices, right, to worry about what really matters so that you can then make the choices that you want to make.
This is the thing, and it's unfortunate but true. Is if you have more resources, what it does is it enables you to, well, you can explore more options, and you can think longer term, right? Versus when you're hungry, you got to like figure out how to get food. Okay, so you're not thinking about next year. You're not thinking about 5 years down the road, right? You're not thinking about 10 years down the road. That's what Bezos does. But it's a very unfortunate it's like I would call it a negative feedback loop, because it's not that the individual is like it's a bad thing. This is where you want to, if you can crack that nut, you could help humanity in like a major way.
But they like the nut that you're trying to crack is like the trading places type of thing. I forget, it was environment over versus something. I can't remember what the other thing was. If you were brought up in this environment, you can do this. I forget the experiment they did in trading places. It was the environment versus something. I can't remember.
It was a derivatives thing in that movie. That's the old like Eddie Murphy movie.
Right.
Yeah, it was a derivatives thing.
Okay. So that's what makes the difference. I mean, if you're exposed, then you know. But if you're not exposed, then you don't know. Basically.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean that is there's um I'll just stop it there. Yeah, I mean, you got to know, if you don't understand how things work, then you can't get a job as a mechanic if you don't know how an engine works.
Look, I take it. I'll drop it down a little further. I mean, finances. They don't even teach finances in school. They don't even teach you how to use the checkbook. I mean, I know checkbooks are obsolete now for the most part, but they don't teach you. They don't teach you those basic, the real basic skills that you need to function in a society.
I think that's an absolute travesty. It's the most self-defeating, systemically stupid, self-defeating, screw our own population, dumb. Why not? Why would
It kind of makes sense when you think about it. Like I said, if you can keep the people dumb and poor, right, then they have to turn to you. And at the end of the day, if you're not the boss, you're not the boss. So some people, I should say, want to keep people in a subservient position, right, because it keeps the whole engine turning. at the end of the day. If everybody could become free, right, then somebody's going to lose some freedom, right, at the end of the day. And it's just how it works.
No, I mean, they're naturally speaking, who's got a double, who's got a, okay, naturally speaking, there is a smaller portion of folks who are leaders, and then a larger portion of folks who are followers, and there's nothing wrong with either. And the 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 you know the dude,
But hold on, before you go any further though, Karma, this is kind of in the context of what I'm saying at the end though, right? Think about the old world dynamics, right? There are always leaders and then followers in that context, right? But when most people were more self-sufficient, right, and their livelihood depended on their farm and what they were producing, right, it changes the dynamics, right, at the end of the day. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, we have to get to a point where we realize that at every given moment we have a choice to make. And if we make the choice, right, to be a follower, then you're going to have limited ability to make other choices, right? It's just kind of really simple at the end of the day.
well, there's a difference between talking to a man who stands on his own feet and talking to a man who is employed or like dependent upon somebody else.
But we created an environment where it became systemically important for more people to be relying on someone else than not, right? That was kind of the whole industrial thing that we went through the 70s, as all these corporations started to grow and they were bringing people off the farm so that they could get the jobs, right? And then all of a sudden, the whole system that we basically lived in became very systemically important, that there were more followers than leaders.
If
Well,
I
there's
may,
always going to be more followers than leaders. That's just the natural state of affairs. That's reasonable.
I don't think I agree with that though, right? Because I think that in an old world paradigm, more people were, I think the father was the leader, right? And if he had a family, then yeah, he was probably the few among the many in that context. But I think that back in the old paradigm, like, the leader of the family was really the leader, and it wasn't these leaders that were kind of like compelling everyone else as we have now in this current environment.
if any of you would like some lighthearted comedic take on this, but with a very serious undertone, I just pinned a tweet from George Carlin. I think it was 2006, about why education is the way it is in the US, and I think 16 years ago it's still very relevant and touches in all the things that are being said right now in a small bit of 5 minutes of your time. So
Yeah, that's why I brought him up, because the guy was a genius.
yeah, he's still relevant for like 4 decades now. It's fucking amazing. I love his work. But
Right. In simple terms, they teach you.
Canadian.
anyways, I pinned the tweet at the top. Have fun.
Yeah, I agree though. In simple terms, school today, right? They teach you how to think, or they teach you what to think, not how to think, right? And so that's really the big thing.
Yeah, but at the
Yeah, of
end of the
course,
day,
Def. Like, they've been in the business of creating the ideal or optimal employees. Like, that's really what the educational system is kind of about, right? They want to crank out people who end up making good employees for the most part.
Yep, I agree. Right, and you can think of it from like a government standpoint, wanting their best economic structure in a sense of having the smartest employees. Maybe gives you that incentive. Yeah. Anyway, we got
Sure.
like 3 minutes left. We're gonna close it right at 5 o'clock. NY Crypto, you came up, man. If you want to speak, and I think we'll probably close it up right after.
Yeah, thank you for letting me talk. I just wanted to add one thing to the convo. I agree with what Costa is saying, and that if we took away the old system and implement the new changes, there would be a lot more leaders than there are followers, because how we are taught to raise our children is to never have them question authority. And if you do that to every single child or majority of the children, you're just statistically going to create followers, because they're not going to trust themselves. They're not going to wake up in the morning and go, I believe my choices are correct. They're going to wake up every morning and go, I'm going to be told no today. So what do I have to do to not be told no? And if we eliminate that and just watch kids and make sure that they're safe instead of telling them no, 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 you're going to see how that number is going to switch, and there's going to be more leaders and followers.
Well,
So,
I don't think necessarily, if I may, that leaders are followers. It is an important subject, but I think that it starts with critical thinking, and it starts with asking questions, especially when kids are young, and you don't beat that curiosity out of it, and you just feed it, and you tell the kid, "I don't know your answer. Interesting question. Let's research it together." And by stimulating that, you raise at least a critical thinker. Whether it's going to be a leader or a follower, I don't know, but at least it's going to be someone that's going to seek the truth, and it's going to seek answers. And I think that's valuable going forward.
Steak, you should understand this, but I feel very fortunate in that I had my grandfather, and he was very much of this method, and he never really like told me anything. He asked me questions, and
Yeah,
I
you
had to
told
figure
me.
it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a good. It he, yeah, he wouldn't let me use a calculator. I had to just add it up in my head. Like he that's just the way he was. Um,
In
but it was,
hindsight, the appreciation grows, right?
well, I just think it, you know, it was, he was a, how do I say that? It didn't matter. He wasn't, he was definitely like, say, head of the household, right? Um, but it wasn't like, I mean, he was never like a, I mean, he was just a, what do you, he was a let me, in a sense, I could say the, he said the best sale, because he was a salesman, insurance. And, he was like the best salesman of the best listeners. And like, it's not the fancy pants guy that does all the talking. It's the best listeners. And then you see, if you listen well enough, you can see the person's problem and then try and help them.
100%. I'm sorry, Karma. I gotta close up the space. We're right at that 5 o'clock mark, guys. I'm sorry, McQuack. I know you came up, but if you could come up tomorrow, we will be here 3:30 Eastern Standard Time, guys. I love you all. I thank everybody who comes to the space. We wouldn't be hosting these if it wasn't for everybody finding the information valuable, as well as me and Karma intaking valuable information from everybody else. But thank you, guys. Everybody have a good night.
Yeah, and we actually would totally 100% appreciate everybody joining. Um, and if you do want to help support us, you can donate to the addresses there on the top of the ledgerscale account. And yeah, thanks for joining and participating.
See everybody tomorrow. Great chat.